What's going on, guys? This is Sir Clarence with Ultrablack News, and today we have the honor and privilege of interviewing Jon Gosier, the owner of FilmHedge. So, Jon, welcome.
All right, thanks for having me.
Definitely. So, normally how I kick off my shows is with an intro. So, are you ready for yours?
Go for it.
All right. So, this man literally put the ha in movies. This man is a serial entrepreneur and seasoned investor with decades of experience in investment technology and working in the entertainment industry. He's also an author, a screenwriter, and philanthropist. And this man was one of 10 African tech voices to follow on Twitter by CNN, and also the 25 most influential African Americans in technology. This man is Jon. So, Jon, welcome.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yes, sir. So, is there anything else that I should add to your intro to put some respect on your name?
No, I thought you did a great job. So
Awesome. So, FilmHedge. So, for the audience that's watching, could you share with us, about this business and how it started and came about, and what inspired you to start this type of company?
So, FilmHedge is a company that really it makes film investing easier on the investment side. So it's really solving a problem for the types of companies, funds, banks, etc., that want to put money into film. We make it more transparent, we make it faster, and we make it more scalable, just easier to repeat. And on the other side of the table, what we do is we lower the bar for filmmakers to kind of reach out and have a way, at least a path to get funding that's not related to knowing the right people, which is what I think is one of the big pitfalls in the film industry. And then the other thing that we do is it's all tech enabled, so we make it easier for the reporting, to do the repayments on the debt that they take out through our platform, etc. So we're really just a technology solution to two sides of a very old industry: the investor side and the investee side. Our loans are up to $1 million per film, or up to $5 million for, let's say, you're working on a TV series, or several films as part of a slate. And potential borrowers can just come to our site. We have some information up about like what qualifies and how to apply, and they just go through the process. And if you qualify, there's a good chance we'll fund you, and if you don't, there's a good chance we won't be able to fund you, but we'll give you information about how to get there. And what inspired me to start the company? So I started off in the film world almost 15 years ago, back in 2006. 2006. I was working at a recording studio where I ended up working on the first Diary of a Mad Black Woman, the first movie by Tyler Perry, which was Diary of a Mad Black Woman. Someone on his team, or I don't really know how the connection happened, but someone reached out and asked me to become their in-house music supervisor and audio engineer. About a year and a half later, went to work for him, saw him build his empire from the inside. I saw, I wasn't part of those deals, but I was just in at the company when he really just did some really magic in building his company and all the success he's had in his career. And, he's gone even further since then. But I took note of that, and I was like, here's how you structure film deals. Here's how you finance projects. Here's how it works. And I literally quit, and I went into tech because that was my other love. And I had a whole separate career in tech, which I won't get into unless there's questions about it later. But after I exited from my last company, sold my last company. So I sold two companies. But after selling the last one, I came back into film. I started to find ways of financing movies
Yeah.
and using my own money. So I kind of learned the industry by doing. I'm someone who learns by doing, and
Yes.
I funded 4 movies, and it was in funding those movies that I was like, this is a big problem. The way this works, it's
Yeah.
very messy and slow, and so
Yeah.
I set out to build FilmHedge just to kind of solve my own problem as a film financier. And so that's
Yes.
how we got the platform that we have now.
You know what? I think that that's really, really, really awesome. Just to hear about. Just because from my experience, I've been in the industry as well, but just doing more so as acting and stuff like that. But then on the back end, I was able to sit in between, filming and stuff, and being able to see what happens from a production perspective, in terms of everyone being on a schedule, everyone doing this and doing that, and then
Yeah.
later finding out on the back end as well, the financing side of it. And most people, whenever, well, regular people, I should say, that just watching films and stuff, they don't really
Yeah.
know what goes on the back end and stuff like that. And so I like how your company is structured, because again, like you said, you're solving a problem, one for the investor and then one for the person that need to be invested in. So
That's correct.
that's definitely big, man. And I definitely love that, because in terms of the investment side, for someone who doesn't really know, I say that's looking to get invested in. So for someone that doesn't really know, how to fund their film and stuff, like, they have all these bright ideas and all the different stuff and things like that, but trying to get that funding aspect, you guys definitely take that burden away from them. So I definitely like that.
Yeah, we give them another path to financing. We're not the complete path, so they still have to combine solutions. But
Of course.
what it represents, at least from my perspective, is, as someone who's tried to have films made, is in the process of making films, and have helped other people get their films made.
Yeah.
Every little bit helps. There is literally no one I've met in Hollywood who is not looking for money for something. I don't care if you're talking about the biggest actor in the world, or the biggest director in the world, or just someone fresh out of film school. Everybody needs money. And at FilmHedge, we're just trying to make it easier. Not everyone gets it. A lot of people who are in the film business, they're so stuck in the old way of how Hollywood works. And they kind of want to keep it that way because it tends to benefit them.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reality is, you look at any industry, insurance, healthcare, government stuff, legal stuff, all of those industries have been automated. And the film industry is the only one that is so arrogant to say that this can't be automated. And I'm just like, that defies logic. And so the people who don't get it, and who aren't kind of going down this path of automating film, I hope they're right, but I don't think they will be, because it's just not how it's gone in any other industry.
And you know what? I like what you mentioned with that as well, because like you said, a lot of the other industries are evolving. And so, how I look at it, if you're not evolving, you're getting left behind. If you look at some of the big brands and stuff, I won't mention any names, but Amazon, how they disrupt the industry. And so in its essence, you disrupting this industry as well, doing the things that you do with FilmHedge. So, that's definitely something that, I enjoy, just witnessing as well, just because, I'm a big fan of entrepreneurs and stuff like that. I watch Shark Tank, watch all these different shows and stuff. So to see someone that looks like me doing this onto this scale, man, it's an honor, man.
Well, thank you.
And so let me ask you this, prior to getting into film and stuff like that, I have here that you went to school to do like storyboarding type things and stuff like that. What was that like for you in terms of that type of, getting that education within that field?
So I went to the Savannah College of Art and Design here in Savannah, Georgia, but here in Georgia.
Yeah.
And now they do have a campus in Atlanta, but they didn't when I went there. I studied what's called sequential art. Sequential art is basically storyboarding or comic book panels. And so it's basically telling a story visually with hand-drawn art. The reason why movies use it is because that's how you plan where the camera's going to be. That's how you plan like what the setup of the shot is going to be. And it's the most inexpensive way of doing all that planning. You don't need cameramen. You don't need actors or actresses. You can just draw it, and then you get the visual representation. Then when you spend all the money and you have the cameras there, you have the cameramen there, cameramen and women there, you have the actors and actresses there, you have the director there, then rather than just trying to come up with stuff, you can say like, oh, here's what the vision is for this shot. Here's where this stuff is supposed to be. Here's how we're supposed to get from this shot to the next shot. And it really simplifies the visual storytelling. It's a very big part of filmmaking, and actually a very underappreciated part of filmmaking.
Yeah.
That's how I got into film, because originally when I went to school, I wanted to make comic books. And somewhere along the line, I decided, well, this was before Marvel and Warner Brothers. It was before Disney acquired Marvel, and it's before Warner Brothers acquired DC Comics. Comic books were not sexy when I was in college. And in fact, it was like one of the geekiest, nerdiest, least lucrative things that you could probably come out of college doing. And, art school ain't cheap. It costs as much as an Ivy League school.
Of course.
So I wanted to make sure that I went down the path that was actually going to allow me to survive. And at first it was entertainment, and then I ended up working at TPS. But after that, it was tech. And tech is really where I kind of made my, had my first few successes, and then all of that culminated into what I'm doing now.
Hey, look, and that's what I wanted to bring it up, just to kind of marry the two, because I had this written down for you, and I wanted to ask you what it means to you, doing work that's fulfilling. What does that mean to you personally?
It means everything, because even when it's tough, it's still fulfilling, right? So like you have your ups, you have your downs. It's very hard to keep going as an entrepreneur if you are, when you're hitting those downs, and if it's not something that you really believe in.
Yep.
If it's the opposite, when you really believe in it, it's like, I know that, and I'm not necessarily speaking about myself. I'm just saying, like, the mindset of someone who loves what they're doing, loves the problem that they're solving is, that problem exists. You know that you have a solution. You hope that it's the best solution. But one thing that you aren't going to do is stop until you solve that problem. Yes. And it makes, because as an entrepreneur, you get a lot of no's. You get a lot of no's from people who you thought would be on your side. You get a lot of people who are like detractors. And those no's sting a lot less when it's like, you know what? I am, you have to tell yourself, like, I'm so passionate about this that I know you're wrong. You just don't see the vision that I see.
Amen.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And, I like to think that the people who believe that strong enough, who work hard enough, who push hard enough, and who get up over and over again after getting knocked down, eventually they'll get there, and eventually you'll prove to the world that you were right.
Look, man, you're absolutely on point with that, man. Just because, I look at it from this perspective. I read something recently and heard something and was saying the difference between, your millionaires, your billionaires and stuff like that, and versus you is that they didn't quit. You know what I mean? And so, that's been a lot of the stuff that I've been learning in my life, and stuff like, following your dreams, following stuff that you're passionate about, and then, executing on those things. And you know what I mean? And then also solving problems, which you mentioned quite a bit. And that's one of the other things that I was going to say, is that I've been finding that some of the most successful companies in our world, the biggest ones you think of, they all solve problems. Yeah. If you really look at it. So let me ask you this. What was it like being in Africa and doing your business stuff over there? What was that like? Because I haven't been overseas yet, so that's on my bucket list.
So I ended up in Africa just by happenstance. I was dating a girl. We fell in love. She had to move for her job. I just kind of followed her there. Yeah. The kind of that is the reason why I went. The selfish side of it, because everyone does something for self as well as whatever the other reason is. But the selfish side of it was, at the time, I had just quit a very lucrative job working for one of the biggest upcoming filmmakers in modern American history, Tyler Perry. And before that, I was working in the music industry. And so I was making really good money, music industry in Atlanta, no less, in the mid 2000s. So, I had like all the celebrity connections. I had all the, access to do some really big stuff. And I was making really good money, and I really had no reason to give it up. But the way I looked at it was, before I got out of college in 2000, right when I went to college, there was a .com boom, where you had all these kids coming out of Silicon Valley, starting companies, raising hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars for some of the dumbest ideas ever. And then you had the .com bust, where all the investors lost their money. Some of the people who raised money ended up going on to become the investors. Like Mark Cuban made his money then. Elon Musk made his money then. So like a lot of Jeff Bezos, a lot of the people who we know now as billionaires, they were kids back then, or in their early 20s back when the 2001 .com boom and bust happened. Yes. So when I was in college, I didn't necessarily know that, but I knew all the hype coming from the tech industry, and I was like, what is like, I had never seen anyone in my lifetime get that excited about work. Yes. You know what I mean? Like business stuff. And I was like, whatever's going on in tech, I need to be a part of that. And so and then also the other thing that was interesting at the time is Napster was big. Oh, so I don't know if you remember that. Yep. So Napster was like, so I would be in the studio with all these like famous recording executives and high-powered executives, and they'd be recording the next big, Michael Jackson or Kanye West or Britney Spears, whoever was popular back then. They'd be recording those albums, working with some of the biggest talent in the industry. And I just remember all they talked about was Napster and how to stop it, like every single session. And I was like, that the kid who made that is not that much older than me. And he's in the tech industry. And why are all these music people talking about tech? And so like that just like that was the kind of like, it was like a light was like shined on me. It was like, I don't need to be chasing this music money because the whole business is screwed up anyway. Yeah. Like I need to be over here with the tech guys. So I took that, my girlfriend moving to Africa as an opportunity to almost reinvent myself. Yeah. I left as the guy who, you mentioned the laugh tracks on movies and TV shows. I left as the guy who did that. And then I ended up in Africa, and I was like, I'm just here to do tech stuff. And I knew enough. I had been someone who taught myself to code, or had always kind of been tinkering. Wow. I wasn't the best at it, but I knew enough to know that to get by, I could speak the language. And then I would just hire people to do the heavy lifting. So I would hire real tech people, real coders, to help me build the stuff that I wanted. And in Africa, labor was very cheap. So I was able to build a company where I employed people, paid them a very healthy wage. Yes. And then our company would get hired by companies in the US to do tech projects, almost like outsourcing.
Of course, but hey, look, man, that's genius, man. If you think about, in terms of reinventing yourself, you know what I mean? Like, like that's how I was, getting into the tech space as well. Because for me, I did the cybersecurity route, and so
Yeah.
it is awesome in that space as well. Because if you see with the latest thing with the oil, with the pipelines and all of that stuff, and it's like, wow. So in terms of like you teaching yourself how to code, how was that like? What did that consist of? Like you just here and there tinkering around with like, hey, I got this idea and what I want to do, or how was that for you?
So it started off when I was like literally a kid. I was maybe 10 or 11, and like many kids, I like computer games. I think Nintendo was out then, so it was like video games and computer games were a big part of my world back then. But I gravitated to the computer more because you could take it apart and put it back together, and you could add stuff, and you could, like you would get these games, and there was all these cheat codes, and like it was just way more interactive than the console games. And so then I was like, at some point it dawned on me, it's like, well, I'm playing this game, I didn't make it. It came from somewhere, someone else made it. How do I learn how to do what they do? And I can't say that while I was in grade school, I did a whole lot of programming, but yeah, I just became very technical. And then shortly after, maybe when I was 11 or 12, the internet went mainstream. And so that was even more interactive, because it's like, wait a minute, these are people all over the world, and I get to talk to them within seconds. And so that whole path of technology, interactivity with gamings, and being able to communicate with people around the world, all of that just kind of really excited me. And while I was in college, so fast forward, several years, I'm in college, I had a professor. That professor was maybe 21, 22.
Yeah.
And he was the professor. And I was 18 and I was his student. And I was like, wait a minute, like, how are you at the front of the class and I'm back here? And it was a guy who started like some type of graphics company in the .com boom. He sold it for a lot of money, and then he became someone who was respected in his field, and then he got hired to teach classes. And so I was just like, I got to figure out how to do that. And so the time of my going to school and coming out and ended up working in the same industry was about 5 or 6 years. And in those 5 or 6 years, I basically taught myself to code using like, coding for dummies and HTML for dummies, and a lot of tutorials. And there used to be all these magazines that would be at Barnes and Nobles, and they would talk about coding, and I would just collect all that stuff. And I just was able to cobble together enough skill, and then I would also just try to make stuff, right? Because the technology is like, I'm someone who learns by doing, but the whole tech industry, I think, is like, you need to do, otherwise you aren't actually going to learn much. And so you need to build stuff in order to understand how to build stuff. And so I was always doing that, even though my stuff never worked right and I was frustrated and it wasn't perfect. The fact that I was trying taught me enough that I could learn to speak the language. And then when I was able to, go to Africa, and then I had the money saved up that I had in order to, when I was able to hire folks to come work for my company, it was easier to talk to them because I had been in their position before. Maybe I wasn't as good as them, and that was ironic because they worked for me, but I knew how to tell them what needed to happen, and they understood it because I wasn't just some pie in the sky person who never tried before. Like, I actually knew the basics.
Yes. And you know what I like about that too is like, it makes sense, in terms of knowing your strengths and weaknesses. And, people can be strong in one area, and if they're weaker in another area, if you can find someone that can strengthen your weakness, that makes for success as well too. So let me ask you this. What advice would you give your younger self?
I mean, the only advice I would give is to start tinkering sooner. Like I really didn't even know that. I mean, like tech and entrepreneurship and business has defined my entire career, professional career. But honestly, like I didn't even know it was an option until I was 18 when I met that professor, and I didn't get to pursue it until I was maybe 26. And that's all that, I mean, imagine if I had just a 5-year head start on all of that, like to do it sooner and to get started sooner. I would be, I like to think I would be so much further. And so I encourage people to, if you're a parent, get your kids into whatever is, because here's the other thing. You don't know what's next as a parent, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't know what's next. You know, I'm 40 now. Like, I don't know what's going to be the future. And I didn't know when I was, 13, what the future was going to be. Yeah. But when I was 13, I knew what excited me, and I knew the things that I was spending time doing. And if your kids are into things that you don't understand because they're new, I think that's a good thing. It's like, you should encourage that. Yeah. Because a lot of parents make the mistake of trying to prepare their kids for the world the way it was when they were that age. And it's never going to be like that again. It's never going to be like that again. So you have to get out of your own way and let your kids be who they're going to be. Encourage that exploration, encourage the tinkering and the trying stuff, and just support them, because that's how, you know, entrepreneurs are made. That's how geniuses are made. That's how creatives are made.
Man, you hit the nail on the head with that, man. Like, and the reason why I say that, because earlier I was talking to one of my aunts. She's my grandmother's sister, and you know, I'm trying to piece together like the back history, you know, of your family and stuff, and like asking the questions that I wish I would have asked when I was younger. And so I would ask her, I was like, so auntie, would you imagine that you would be sitting in a house with AC? With AC? Like, she said no. She told me that during her times growing up with you know, my grandmother and their mom and stuff, they would work a whole day for $2. A whole day from sun up to sundown for $2. Wow. You know what I mean? And so you know, how I'm relating to what you said is that you're preparing them, your children, for the world of where, you know, what you mentioned is like, wow, that, you know. So, you know, like you said, you know, inspiring them, you know, having them tinker and do things like that, you know, what interests them, you know, could definitely go a long way. So
yeah, I mean, and to go back to like our parents and grandparents generation, think of how different the world was. Let's go back to our grandparents. And with our grandparents, schools weren't even segregated yet. Yeah. You know, you go back, well, actually, for a lot of them, the women couldn't vote until a certain portion of their lives, you know. So a lot of things have changed about the world just in 2 generations. Yes. You know, for some families, it's going to be 3 or 4, but, you know, we're talking about, you know, let's call a generation 20 years each. You know, you go back 3 or 4 times, and it's like the whole world, everything is different. Yes. And so I don't think people should get too caught up on trying to prepare their kids for, you know, for what they think the world is going to look like. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, my mom swore that I needed to be a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, or something like that to be successful. Yeah. And here I come along, it's like, no, I'm going to make comic books. And she was like, what? And she let me do it, but I'm sure she was terrified. And she let me do it, and it led me down the path of getting to what I really do now. Yeah. But I wouldn't be doing any of this if I had never gone down that path that seemed like the wrong path. And even, to be honest, like, even though I ended up doing business, tech, finance, that kind of stuff, even if I had pursued comic books, that's a very lucrative industry now. It just wasn't when I was interested in it. Of course.
And you know what? I kind of I kind of like that too, from the perspective of also going back to what I said about chasing your dreams, because sometimes, even the people that we love the most, they may not see the vision that you have for yourself in your life, and may not know what could come of that. You know what I mean? And so I really, really like that. Well, hey, Jon, it's been an honor, interviewing you and showcasing your success. Is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with?
No, I mean, I would just, I guess, sorry, I take that back. Yes, I would like to leave them with two things. One is, as we've been talking about, is whatever you think the future is going to be like, it's your job to help create it, because all of the amazing things that are happening in the world started with someone just having an idea, a vision, also all the bad things, but it starts with someone who has like some sort of vision for change in the world. And it doesn't matter how big that vision is or how small it is, you can as a single individual change the world in some way that can be for the better or for the improvement or whatever. And so I encourage people to try to build the things that they want. Entrepreneurship is hard, it's not for everyone, but that's not the only way to change things. If you have a corporate job, you can do it with it. They call it entrepreneurship. You can do it within your company. You can, support someone else who is an entrepreneur if you don't want to take that risk yourself. So I encourage people to at least pursue that. Try to change the things that you want. And then the last thing I'll say is, separately from FilmHedge, which FilmHedge is a very technical, financial driven. It's like either you check all the boxes to get funding or you don't. It's very, it's a non-creative way of looking at film investing. Yeah. Whereas my other company, Southbox, is the opposite. We develop stories in-house. We create stuff. We're very passionate about telling stories about diverse protagonists and so forth. And so that company is taking the opposite approach, where it's completely creative driven. And, if there are people out there who are doing stuff on the creative side, I would encourage them to reach out to Southbox. If they're filmmakers, TV producers, etc., Southbox would probably be more helpful to them than FilmHedge would.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you again for taking the time to speak with me. And, I definitely will put that on there for all the people that I know that are in the industry, and, definitely check that out. And you have an amazing rest of your night. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Have a good one.
What's going on, guys? This is Sir Clarence with Ultrablack News, where we aim to highlight all things good in the Black community. So if you're new to our channel, make sure that you hit that like button, make sure that you subscribe, and then make sure that you share this with friends and family members. Make sure to tag them in the post as well if this is great content that you enjoy and that you believe that they will enjoy as well.